So I wanted to make this video to talk about how CPTSD can affect your relationship with food and eating habits. As a disclaimer, I will be talking about eating habits and food, and I would vaguely talk about trauma, but I will not go into details. But if those topics trigger you, you can click away if you need to. There also is obviously not a one-size-fits-all, and I will not cover everything in this video, so this may not cover your experience. So CPTSD can cause you to either undereat or overeat depending on your response to trauma. Some people undereat because they subconsciously want the body to look more like it did during the trauma. Some people do not want the body to look the way it did during the trauma. Undereating can also give you a false sense of control. Even though it's not actually control, it gives you a false sense of control. And it also can numb you out from your trauma. And for some people, it can make them have less PTSD symptoms, even though it's not good in the long run. It can numb them out and cause them to dissociate more and cause them to feel less connected to their body. And so undereating can numb them out. At the same time, for some people, it can cause them to overeat or even binge because they get endorphins and serotonin from eating, and it helps them deal with the emotions that come from their trauma. Another way that CPTSD affects trauma is that there's certain times of the day, certain times of the month, certain times of the year where the trauma happened that can make it really hard to eat during those times. So let's say the abuse usually happened during a certain time of the day or a certain time of the year. Holidays are a good example. It can make it really hard to eat during those times because it's a trauma date. Food can also trigger PTSD symptoms because a food may have been eaten before or after abuse, or may have been eaten with their abuser. Let's say their abuser made them a certain type of food a lot, or their abuser liked a certain type of food. I know I've had the problem where I have trouble liking any types of food that my abuser liked because I think that it makes me like them. So it can be anything of that nature. Foods and smells can really remind you of trauma. In fact, smell is like the scent that's most connected to memories. One's relationship with food and body image also largely comes from their family dynamic of how food and your body image were talked about and what kind of environment you're around in your childhood. So if there were unhealthy comments made during your childhood involving food and body image, or if you don't have that good association because of neglect or just the way that your family members taught and made the environment around food growing up, there could be that negative association there, and your core beliefs could come from there. So you could have core beliefs about not deserving to eat and things of that nature. So it might even be helpful for some people to ask themselves, what kind of messages did I receive from my childhood about food, about my body image? Were there any type of comments that were made that still affect me to this day, that affect how I view food and view cooking and view my body? What kind of comments were made? Were they healthy or were they inappropriate? What was it? People who experience neglect also can have trouble with food insecurity, which can cause it to be hard to eat. Food is often also used as a grooming tactic for a lot of groomers, and so food can be seen as a punishment or reward, or they don't get to eat as a punishment if they did something wrong, quote unquote, or either it can be used as a grooming tactic to get somebody to do what they want. So that could be another trigger for somebody with CPTSD. CPTSD is also comorbid with a lot of disorders that can make it hard to eat, such as neurodivergence. People who are neurodivergent are more likely to suffer from trauma in their childhood and so on. It's comorbid with depression a lot of the time, and anxiety, and sickle vomiting syndrome, and IBS, and a bunch of other disorders like that, which can also affect your ability to eat. One of the main factors of CPTSD is that your body is constantly in fight or flight, and so when your body is constantly in fight or flight, it can be really hard to eat because your body is constantly in survivor mode. It's constantly there is danger, we gotta prepare for danger, and when you think that there's danger and that you need to be prepared for it to protect yourself, you're not thinking about eating. That's the last thing on your mind. Dissociation is also common with CPTSD. I know sometimes it's hard for me to eat because I do not feel connected to my body. I feel outside of my body, as if I'm watching from third person, or everything around me feels like a video game or a movie, and I don't feel connected to my body. And so it's hard to get the cues to my brain that, hey, my body needs to eat, because I don't feel completely connected to my body. Since CPTSD can be comorbid oftentimes with physical health symptoms, if somebody has pain from eating, gets stomach pain and stuff from eating, abdominal pain, it can also feel very similar to pain felt during trauma, and so that can be another trigger for somebody with CPTSD. People with CPTSD also might be less reluctant to put something in their mouth and eat, especially if they feel forced to, they have no other choice because it's somebody telling somebody to do something with their body that they don't want to do, to put something in their body that they don't want in their body. Somebody who has experienced food insecurity or has experienced poverty might also be more reluctant to eat food because they feel like they need to hoard it for another time. They need to save it in case they need it in the future, which is really unfortunate because people with CPTSD oftentimes are like in poverty when they get older because of their CPTSD, and there being a lack of resources, especially in the United States, to get help. Food habits can also be out of whack for people with CPTSD because your relationship with sleep is out of whack, and I made another video on that. If you're interested, you can find it on my page. And so if you're not sleeping well, your eating habits are probably not like very healthy either. Lastly, I just want to say, at the end of the day, CPTSD really affects your sense of control and affects your sense of self-worth and identity, and those things can definitely play a role in whether or not you feel that you deserve to eat and whether or not you feel in control of your eating habits or not. And so, of course, I left some things out. If there's anything I forgot, you can comment down below. I might make another video in the future. I didn't elaborate too much on stuff because I didn't want to make this video too long, but if you have any questions, comment down below, and I hope you learned something from this video. Thank you and have a great day. Oh, one last disclaimer I want to add is obviously just because somebody has an eating disorder or disordered eating does not mean that they have CPTSD. That seems like common sense, but I just want to throw that out there because you never know with like people on the internet how they're going to take things. But yeah, you can have disordered eating, you can have eating disorders and stuff like that without having CPTSD.